Hello. Today's episode number 26 of the Professor Slots podcast discusses a collection of 6 small yet important extras uncovered yet never clearly stated from the last 25 episodes, plus slot machine casino gambling in the U.S. state of Michigan. Thank you for joining me for the Professor Slots podcast show. I'm John Friedel, and this is the podcast about slot machine casino gambling. It is where I provide the knowledge, insights, and tools for helping you improve your slot machine gambling performance. Show notes are available within most podcast apps or at professorslots.com/E26.
John Friedel from the Professor Slots blog reveals all his tips and tricks for thriving in the casino environment. Choose winning slot machines and identify your gambling goals. Being entertained, earning comps, winning take-home cash, or combining them. John has won 90 taxable jackpots and a luxury car in 9 months of slot play and made a profit at slots gambling since 2013.
In case you missed it, on last week's episode, Winning Strategy 2, I went over realistic winning strategies for progressive slot machines, which have become so popular they can now make up to 30% of the machines in a casino, like those new slot machines you've been seeing with major and minor jackpots. Also last week, I reviewed Massachusetts slot machine casino gambling, currently consisting of a slot parlor and a cruise ship. But as mentioned, Massachusetts Slots has a bright future. In late 2011, a bill was approved by the governor allowing the creation of 3 land-based casino resort licenses. 2 of these 3 licenses have been awarded, and casino resorts are under construction in Springfield and Everett. For those interested, you can see current construction updates for MGM Springfield, scheduled to open in late 2018. Just look for project updates on their main casino website at mgmspringfield.com to find weekly construction updates as well as a weekly off-site roadwork look ahead. I hope you enjoyed listening to my last episode as much as I enjoyed making it for you. Remember to visit professorslots.com/subscribe to get my free report revealing the top 7 online resources for improving your gambling performance, including the one I've used as a top-tier slot machine casino gambler. Let's get started with the first segment of the show, 6 extras for slots players. As I've forged ahead with producing and publishing episode after episode, a few small items of interest to slots enthusiasts didn't make their way into any particular episode. I haven't previously used them or stated them as clearly as I might otherwise have done, because these important tidbits haven't quite fit in with any of my prior episodes on winning strategies, casino safety, slots manufacturers, leveraging payout returns, and all the rest. So I've been collecting them for their own episode segment, and now is the time to share them. Therefore, this episode segment has the following sections: an introduction, Alexa skill as a podcast destination, merch for community building, books on learning to win, email updates for slots enthusiasts, voicemail hotline for show questions, idea for episode office hours, and a summary. The first extra is a podcast technical innovation for which I was able to jump on the bandwagon for as part of the first group of podcasters to do so. It's called an Alexa skill. But first, a little background. There's a bit of technical work that goes into podcasting. It doesn't take much to be a podcaster. All you really need is a microphone, a computer, a $5 per month host account, and something to talk about. And the last 2 of these are rather optional, although dropping them may not result in a good podcast. It's the host account that's important here. Right now, you are listening to an audio file. That audio had to have been uploaded somewhere, and that somewhere is the host. For example, iTunes or Apple Podcasts is not a host. Rather, that's a distribution network. So there is a technical side to this podcast as well as a content side to it, which you are listening to. I've tried to be good at both. On the technical side, I've tried to set up my host account to make my podcast available at as many destinations as possible. I want to be able to say, listen to Professor Slots wherever podcasts are available. I don't want to have to say, listen to Professor Slots at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play Music, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, SoundCloud, RSS Radio, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Downcast, iCatcher, PodWrangler, Podbean, and more. What I'm trying to say is that there's background work going on to make my Professor Slots podcast available to as many destinations as possible. This early decision led me to originally choose a podcast host with a currently thorough yet actively growing list of podcast destinations. This original research for podcast host resulted in my choosing Liberated Syndications, also known as Libsyn. I won't get into all the aspects of how diligent they are, but because of that diligence, I now have an Alexa skill. However, getting into the first group of podcasters to get an Alexa skill required a relatively easy commitment. Basically, I had to promise my podcast host to tell you when I got it. So if you would, let me tell you about Alexa and my Alexa skill. Alexa is Amazon's voice service connected to the Echo family of devices, like Echo Snow and Echo Spot. Alexa provides capabilities or skills that enable customers to create a more personalized experience. Essentially, Libsyn has set up a service with Amazon so that podcasts which Libsyn hosts can, if the podcaster requests it, receive their very own Alexa skill. This is something Libsyn has been developing with Amazon for several years. Each month, Libsyn submits a small group of interested podcasters to Amazon to get their Alexa skill. I applied as soon as it was announced and was added to the first regular group of podcasters, right after the alpha and beta testers. All that being said, perhaps you'd be interested in using Alexa to listen to the Professor Slots podcast show. Note that you do need, naturally enough, an Alexa device to do it. Also, keep in mind that Amazon has plans to eventually put the Alexa device into cars. The future is coming, my friends, and her name is Alexa. So, if you have an Alexa device and wish to add the Professor Slots podcast, there are several easy ways to do so. You can go to your online Amazon account, select Alexa Skills from the search menu, then type in Professor Slots into that search menu. Or simply use this convenient link, professorslots.com/Alexa. Either way, you'll be taken to the same Amazon page for the Professor Slots Alexa skill. From there, just click the Enable Professor Slots button. You may need to sign into your Amazon account first, of course. Another way to enable the Professor Slots skill on Alexa is to simply say, Alexa, enable Professor Slots. Alexa, stop. Here are a few quick tips when navigating the Professor Slots podcast skill. First thing to note, when opening the skill, you'll be offered the latest episode. But if that's not what you're looking for, you can always find something more specific. This skill allows you to skip forward and backward by entire episodes, and you can also fast forward and rewind within episodes themselves. In addition, you can ask the skill to play the newest or oldest episodes released, or if you want to get specific, play a specific episode by saying the episode number. Here are some of the commands. To skip entire episodes while the episode is playing, say Alexa skip, or Alexa tell Professor Slots to skip ahead 5 episodes. To fast forward or back within an episode while the episode is playing, say Alexa tell Professor Slots to fast forward 2 minutes, or Alexa tell Professor Slots to rewind 45 seconds. And to select the newest episode, say Alexa tell Professor Slots to play the newest episode. Alexa, stop. I'm saying the Alexa stop for those people who have a Alexa device active. So, for your listening convenience, that is my Alexa skill for the Professor Slots podcast. Please provide a rating and review of this Alexa skill to Amazon by visiting the same site I just mentioned, professorslots.com/Alexa. The second extra of this segment is about growing our community of slots enthusiasts. As usual, I start with some background. I think we would both benefit from having a larger community. I'm doing everything I can, as fast as I can, to do so online. But there's this other thing out there. Perhaps you've heard of it. It's not virtual reality, but rather the real world. You and I, we should meet. And you, and you, and you over there should meet. Interestingly enough, this is not altogether unreasonable. a lot of other podcast audiences will never meet, except for special once-a-year events where one of them travels to the other. But that's not us. We, this community of slots enthusiasts, including myself, we visit casinos. It is possible that you might recognize me at a casino from a photograph I've shared, but I won't recognize you to be able to simply say hello. How could I? But that's the exact right question. How can I recognize you? How can you recognize each other? It's simple. Buy some Professor Slots merch. Merch is what all the cool kids call merchandise these days. That's right. Professor Slots has merchandise. Don't you think wearing a shirt having Professor Slots will help you spot one another if you happen to pass by each other in a casino? I think you will. If you are interested in Professor Slots merchandise, you can find it by going to professorslots.com/clothing. That link will take you to my Cafe Press shop, where you'll find many sizes and colors of men's and women's shirts and hoodies with the Professor Slots logo. Now, I need to mention money. First, I get an abysmally small amount for each shirt sold. If I could make it zero, I would, just to reduce the cost for you. Second, the costs you see at the Cafe Press shop are partly due to their providing quality clothing. They didn't always. They once ruined their reputation by having poor clothing quality, but now they have good to excellent clothing quality. That's the first reason for the cost that you see. The second reason is because we are slots players. While having the logo on the front of the shirt helps you spot each other at a casino when walking by one another, walking around isn't what we do at a casino. When we are at a casino, as you very well know, we are playing a slot machine. And when we are playing a slot machine, we are generally facing the slot machine with our back towards the rest of the casino. So, a portion of the extra cost of these shirts is due to adding a large Professor Slots logo to the back of the shirt. It's really the only way to truly be effective. One last thing I want to say about the cost. If I could give each one of you a free shirt, I would. However, despite how often they are actually done by others, raffles and other such giveaways are subject to state gaming regulations. I wish I could just give each and every one of you a Professor Slots shirt, but I cannot. My lawyer has strongly advised against having giveaways. Not just strongly, but rather adamantly, I might add. Again, you can find Professor Slots merch at my Cafe Press shop by visiting professorslots.com/clothing. I also have mugs, stickers, magnets, and a few other items, if you're interested. The third extra is something I rarely mention. I have Slots books available, all self-published. This is just one of those topics I keep not mentioning. Basically, they are there for those people who wish to know more about what's coming next. One book, more of a pamphlet since it's less than 30 pages, is the How-To Guide to Winning at Casino Slots, What Everybody Should Know Before Playing Slot Machines. Nearly word for word, it's the content already provided in the first segments of episodes 2 through 5 of the Professor Slots podcast. The How-To Guide to Winning at Casino Slots is only available as an ebook at professorslots.com/Amazon HTG. That's professorslots.com/Amazon HTG. It is as cheap as Amazon Kindle will allow me to make it, which is 99 cents before taxes if you buy it, or free if you participate in the Amazon Kindle Unlimited program. The other book, Learning to Win, How to Make a Profit at Slot Machine Gambling, is available from Amazon as both a Kindle ebook as well as a softcover book. It took me a couple of years to write this 200-page book, then sold it only on my website for more than a year. Before 2018, the price for Learning to Win on my ProfessorSlots.com website was typically between $77.77 and $100. In February of this year, 2018, I decided to pivot, as they say, and make all of the content from this book much more available. I'm not trying to make a significant amount of money at it, but it is helping to pay a portion of my monthly costs of having a website and podcast. If you are interested in it, Learning to Win is available in 3 ways. First, I have it available on my website as a downloadable PDF file. This digital file is a format automatically readable on most computers and smart devices, As it happens, any purchase of it from my website goes only to me. So if you want this book, a PDF file works for you, and if you don't want Amazon to get 70% of the price you paid, then the link you need is professorslots.com/shop. If you would prefer the Amazon Kindle ebook version, it is the same cost to you as the PDF version on my website. If you prefer the Amazon softcover version, it is available for slightly more than the ebook to partially cover the additional cost of Amazon's print-on-demand service. On Amazon, both the Kindle ebook and softcover versions of Learning to Win is available at professorslots.com/LTW. One final note about Learning to Win is simply this. I am constantly creating and updating new content. Each week, I learn and discover more, which I share with you on the website and podcast. However, it is not nearly as easy or straightforward to do the same with a published book. So, while the 200-page book, Learning to Win, contains all my original ideas, it is becoming due for an update with my latest thoughts and discoveries. A good example of this is my recent doubling of what I previously understood about progressive slot machines, as presented in last week's podcast episode. The fourth extra is effectively my current business model. My current business model is to grow my audience. To do that, I have fully aligned all aspects of my Professor Slots business to ask for one thing and one thing only: your email address. When I ask for your email address, I work hard to immediately provide something in return. Primarily, this has been to provide you with my free report, the top 7 online resources for improving your gambling performance, including the one I've used as a top-tier slot machine casino gambler. Right. So, by going to the link I provide so often, professorslots.com/subscribe, you immediately get a one-page, tightly packed list of my top 7 online resources, along with what I find valuable about them. To get them, I request your email. Not your full name, not your address, just your first name and email address. Once provided, you are taken directly to the free report. But you will get added to an email list. With it, you get a short daily sequence of emails, basically a crash course introduction to get you fully up to speed with the guidance I provide. Then, there are weekly emails with links and short descriptions to anything I've recently provided on my website and podcast, along with a few other tidbits I think you might find both useful and interesting. I think it is a good sign that many people sign up and few people unsubscribe, which, as it happens, I make very easy to do. The point here is that my only ask, the only thing I regularly and consistently ask for, is your email address. It is likely to be the only thing I will ask for in 2018 and quite possibly 2019 as well. My business goal is to grow my audience. It is not my business goal to make money. That will come later, likely years from now. What my business needs is an audience in the form of a list of email addresses, your email addresses. To get them, I make every attempt to provide good weekly value in return. To switch over from my current goal of growing my audience, I will need a certain number of email subscribers who are slots enthusiasts. I believe this number is 2,000. At the time of this recording, I have passed the 10% mark of reaching my goal. What happens, you ask, when I reach my goal of 2,000 email subscribers? Well, that's simple. I will send them an email survey, asking them what they want. Is it another book? Or a webinar? An online course or courses? Is it a presentation to them and their friends, perhaps at a casino local to them? Frankly, I don't know. Not yet. Any of these tasks are fine by me, but what I really want to know is what you want. And I don't yet know what that is. I can guess, but I don't really know. Whatever it ends up being, there has to be enough of you for it to be worthwhile doing. I'm pretty sure it's going to be expensive for me to create, and I want to keep the price as low as possible. That means many people. So, what does this all mean? It means that audience grow by word of mouth. That's it. If you like the podcast, tell somebody else that also likes slots. If you like the book, ditto. If you buy a Professor Slots shirt, please walk through a casino wearing it. Whatever you like about Professor Slots, What I want from you is to simply tell someone. I'll take care of the rest by asking for their email address on the podcast, all over the website, in the book, and even with the Professor Slots merch. Again, you tell somebody what you like about Professor Slots, and I'll do the rest. Then, after a while, I'll have enough email subscribers to create a product that will improve your slot machine gambling performance using exactly the method that works best for all of us. The fifth extra is a trend that is starting within the podcast community. At least, it is what all the podcasters are talking about and setting up themselves. Basically, the idea is this. Listeners want to be on the show, however briefly. So, do you want to be on the show? Well then, why not? Do you have a question about slots? Or did something interesting happen with a slot machine when you were at the casino? Yes? Great. All you need to do is call my voicemail hotline at 937-696-0086 and ask your slots question or tell me about your slots experience. Everything may not make it into the podcast episode, especially if it's not slots related, but we shall see. Again, the Professor Slots voicemail hotline is 937-696-0086. I look forward to hearing your slots questions and stories. This voicemail number will also be available in the show notes at professorslots.com/E26. Depending on the app you are using, you may be able to simply just click on it to call the number from your phone. The sixth and final extra was a suggestion made by a fan, a professor of geology. As a fellow professor, I appreciated his suggestion. Like a professor, why don't I have a segment of the podcast where I answer questions from listeners? Put another way, why not have Professor Slots office hours inserted into the show? So, going forward, I'll work on adding a new segment of the show, probably inserted as a middle segment between the primary topic and the first segment, and before each episode's last segment on whichever U.S. state, territory, or federal district is scheduled next. So let's do it. Start calling the hotline at 937-696-0086. Also, you can find that voicemail hotline number at the bottom of every page of my website, professorslots.com. In summary, a few small items of interest to slots enthusiasts didn't make their way into any particular episode. At least, not until now. I've gone over 6 extras for slots players I have been collecting for some time, including 1. Alexa skill as a podcast destination, where those of you with an Amazon Alexa device can now say, Alexa, enable Professor Slots. Oops, sorry about that. Alexa, stop. Remember to visit professorslots.com/Alexa to leave a rating and review with Amazon. 2. Merch for community building, where I explain that men's and women's merchandise with the Professor Slots logo is now available from Cafe Press by using the easy-to-remember link professorslots.com/clothing. 3. Books on learning to win, for those that want to read ahead, including a PDF version on my website at professorslots.com/shop, as well as an Amazon Kindle ebook and softcover available on Amazon by using the simple link professorslots.com/AmazonLTW. 4. Email updates for slots enthusiasts, in which I discussed my current business model and the reasons for it, to collect enough email addresses, such as at professorslots.com/subscribe, by offering something free and of immediate value to someday, years from now, be able to invest and offer something much more valuable than I already am to our community of slots enthusiasts. 5. Voicemail hotline for show questions, which is just like it sounds. For slots questions and anecdotes about slots experiences at the casino, leave a voicemail at 937-696-0086 to possibly be heard on the podcast. 6. Ideas for episode office hours, where a listener suggested I add an office hour segment to the show, where I answer your slots-related questions. Just call the show's voicemail hotline at 937-696-0086, or go to the professorslots.com website for my contact information available at the bottom of every page. Remember to visit ProfessorSlots.com/subscribe to get my free report revealing the top 7 online resources for improving your gambling performance, including the one I've used as a top-tier slot machine casino gambler. Show notes for this episode are now available within most podcast apps, but are also available on my website at ProfessorSlots.com/E26. Up next is the second segment of the show, Michigan Slot Machine Casino Gambling. In this episode segment, I provided a brief overview of the current state of gambling in a U.S. state, U.S. territory, or U.S. federal district, emphasizing, by far, anything of interest to slot machine casino gamblers. As it happens, I was born and raised in Michigan. While Michigan is not the only state I've lived in, it was my home state and the one in which I have, so far, lived the longest. Here goes. Michigan slot machine casino gambling consists of 3 casinos in Detroit and 22 tribal casinos throughout the state. A popular casino for Michigan residents, the Caesars Windsor, is located across the Canadian border from Detroit. Michigan tribal casinos are a thriving business, and many major expansion projects are currently underway within the state. The minimum legal age for gambling is 18 years old. In 1996, Michigan voters approved 3 licensed casinos be built in Detroit, which was later improved, strengthened, and signed into law as the Michigan Gaming Control and Revenue Act. Michigan is home to 12 federally recognized Indian tribes with their own status under federal law and treaties. Federally acknowledged tribes are not merely organizations of citizens who happen to be of American Indian descent. American Indian tribes are sovereign nations. As such, the state of Michigan does not have general regulatory authority over Indian casinos, although the state has oversight authority of compliance with state tribal compact provisions. Tribal casinos are regulated by the National Indian Gaming Commission and the government of the appropriate tribal community. Therefore, the tribes in Michigan are not required to release information on their slot machine payback percentages. However, according to officials at Michigan Gaming Control Board, responsible for overseeing the state tribal compacts, quote, the machines must meet the minimum standards for machines in Nevada or New Jersey, end quote. The Nevada minimum payback return percentage is 75%. The New Jersey minimum payback return percentage is 83%. Therefore, to comply with state tribal provisions, Michigan's tribal casinos must have a minimum payback return of 75%. Next up is a usually short statement about slot machine private ownership, which I have included in case you live in this U.S. state and are considering owning a slot machine. Here it is. It is legal to privately own a slot machine in Michigan if it is 25 years old or older. The Michigan Gaming Control Board states in its mission statement that they, quote, shall ensure the conduct of fair and honest gaming to protect the interests of the citizens of the state of Michigan, end quote. The Control Board serves Michigan citizens by 1. Listening and regulating commercial casinos in Detroit, including their suppliers and employees. 2. Regulating pari-mutuel horse racing. 3. Licensing and regulating Millionaire Party charitable gaming. And 4. Overseeing American Indian tribal casinos' compliance with provisions of the state tribal compact. In this section, I'll discuss Michigan gambling establishments. I've thought about not verbally telling you the names of each state's casinos, even when there are only a couple of dozen, as with Michigan, but I found I like to say the names of casinos. They are often interesting, but more personally, I just like saying them. Being from Michigan, the names of the cities are very familiar, and I do enjoy that. However, as usual, the website links for each casino, assuming they have set up a website, is available by clicking on this segment in the show notes available at ProfessorSlots.com/E26. The slot payout return percentages at the 3 commercial casinos in Detroit are not made available to the public. To comply with state tribal provisions, Michigan's American Indian tribal casinos must have a minimum payback return of 75%. The largest casino in Michigan is the MGM Grand Detroit, a commercial casino. It has 4,000 gaming machines and 98 table games. The second largest casino is Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort, a tribal casino. It has 3,330 gaming machines and 60 table games. Michigan casinos, including the popular Caesars Windsor in Canada, are 1. Bay Mill Resorts and Casino in Brimley, a tribal casino. 2. Caesars Windsor in Windsor, Ontario, Canada, a commercial casino. 3. Firekeepers Casino in Battle Creek, a tribal casino. 4. Four Winds Dowagiac in Dowagiac, a tribal casino. 5. Four Winds Hartford in Hartford, a tribal casino. 6. Four Winds New Buffalo in New Buffalo, a tribal casino. 7. Greektown Casino in Detroit, a commercial casino. 8. Gun Lake Casino in Wayland, a tribal casino. 9. Island Resort and Casino in Harris, a tribal casino. 10. Keewatin Casino Christmas in Munising, a tribal casino. 11. Keewatin Casino Hessel in Hessel, a tribal casino. 12. Keewatin Casino Manistique in Manistique, a tribal casino. 13. Keewatin Casino Sault Ste. Marie in Sault Ste. Marie, a tribal casino. 14. Keewatin Casino St. Ignace in St. Ignace, a tribal casino. 15. Kings Club Casino in Brimley, a tribal casino. 16. Lac Vieux Desert Casino and Watersmeet, a tribal casino. 17. Leelanau Stands Casino and Lodge in Peshaw Besttown, a tribal casino. 18. Little River Casino Resort in Manistee, a tribal casino. 19. MGM Grand Detroit Casino in Detroit, a commercial casino. 20. Motor City Casino and Hotel in Detroit, a commercial casino. 21. Ottawa Casino Resort in Petoskey, a tribal casino. 22. Ojibwa Casino, Marquette, in Marquette, a tribal casino. 23. Ojibwa Casino, Baraga, in Baraga, a tribal casino. 24. Saguenay Eagle Landing Casino in Standish, a tribal casino. 25. Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort in Mount Pleasant, a tribal casino. 26. Turtle Creek Casino and Hotel in Williamsburg, a tribal casino. In summary, Michigan slot machine casino gambling consists of 3 casinos in Detroit and 22 American Indian tribal casinos throughout the state. A popular casino for Michigan residents, the Caesars Windsor is located across the Canadian border from Detroit. Michigan's tribal casinos are a thriving business, and many major expansion projects are underway throughout the state. Remember to visit ProfessorSlots.com/subscribe to get my free report revealing the top 7 online resources for improving your gambling performance, including the one I've used as a top-tier slot machine casino gambler. Part 1 of the next episode of the Professor Slots podcast is still in development. It is likely to be about either this weekend's trip to Seminole Brighton Casino in Brighton, Florida on Sunday, March 25th in the late morning and early afternoon. Look for the Professor Slots shirt. Or about how to keep good gambling records in honor of next month's tax day. Part 2 of the next episode of the Professor Slots podcast is another brief overview of the current state of gambling in a U.S. state, territory, or federal district. This time, I'll be talking to you about the great U.S. state of Minnesota. That's the end of another great episode of the Professor Slots podcast. Thanks so much for listening. Show notes for this episode can be found within most podcast apps or at ProfessorSlots.com/E26. I plan to have the next episode come out very soon for you, where I'll have more amazing content for the show. Until the next episode, have fun, be safe, and make good choices.